When I said don't give people permission to ruin your day, you don't give them permission to ruin your day. And you assign the right value to situations. Stop the drama. I'm too blessed to be stressed. A woman making $1.50 more than minimum wage as a flight attendant on a regional carrier said she was too blessed to be stressed. I was raised in a diva Christian principled woman, supposed to have the faith of a mountain. And it was woe is me that day. Woe is me that day. And yet, you drive down your highway, you see a billboard, and it says, he taught us how to live while dying. Who taught us how to live while dying? His name is Randy Pausch. He wrote the last lecture. And what did Randy say in his last lecture for Carnegie Mellon University that was filmed and then turned into a book? He said he went into a Walmart. He had 3 months to live. He went into a Walmart. He came back out of a Walmart because he was an anal compulsive organized perfectionist. He said he looked at the bag and he looked at the receipt and he was $1.50 short. How did he know? One item, $1.50 short. Went to get out of the car, went to walk back in, stopped himself and said, 5 minutes in, 20 minutes to resolve it, 5 minutes back. He said, you don't know the value of 30 minutes until you have 3 months left to live. Assign the right value to situations. It's not the end of the world. It's just not the end of the world. It's just not that big of a deal. And yet, what do? We get so distracted at what ends up happening. We go to a soccer game and we miss a goal being scored. Why? Because we're checking Facebook. We go to a T-ball game, we don't even see the T-ball game. Why? Because we're on our media. We're on our devices. I tell people, don't you ever give people permission to ruin your day. When my wife and I go see my grandson play T-ball, I'm going to tell you something. Our phones are in the car where yours ought to be. We go to a restaurant. We don't take phones in a restaurant. Why would I take a phone in a restaurant? I'm there with my family. You see, for so many years, it was easy to say, well, these people made a difference in my life, and here's what they gave me. The problem was, what they gave me, I didn't carry it forward. I'm not distracted anymore. When I go to a T-ball game, I have fun. I actually managed a T-ball game. And boy, did we have fun. Because my grandson looked at me and said, Poppy, we going to do anything different? I said, yeah, we're going to have signals. I said, I want you to look down at third base, all you kids. I'm going to go like this. And you're going to go like this. Get in the batter's box. Signals will mean nothing. I'll never forget, I had a little girl come up to me, second batter. I went like this. She said, time. She come walking down. I said, what's going on? She said, nothing. I said, what are you doing down here? She said, I'm acting like I missed the signal. I said, we don't have signals. She said, I know, we're just having fun, right, Coach? The lessons and wisdom of a child. And yet, my mother makes the list, and why does she make the list? Because now we come back to reality. Yes, we come full circle, and we connect all dots. Single father, raising 2 children, sleeping on an air mattress in a 2-bedroom apartment on Holly Avenue in Western Pennsylvania. There is no air conditioning. I'll figure that out whenever the summer rolls around, but for now, the kids got twin beds, I got an air mattress. We don't have much furniture, but we got each other, and we got a closet full of mac and cheese. And I felt I was back in college. Kids were loving it. We had room for a tent, which was a bed sheet in the living room. They didn't want to take that thing down. They said, just promise you won't buy a couch. I'm like, all right, we won't buy a couch. Happy dad. We're going to make it. Positive dad, right? Yeah, well, how about crying dad? Because when they were asleep, I cried. When I got up in the morning and started to fix breakfast for them, I cried. My mother finally came down to that apartment, and she looked at me, and she finally looked and said what I needed to hear. She said, that's it, son. She said, you're not the first to go through this. I said, Mom, she said, I don't want to hear it, son. She said, when you board that plane tomorrow, she had come down because we wanted to discuss her picking up the children after school. It was the first trip I was going to take as a single guy with 2 children away from them. She said, when you get on that plane tomorrow, they're not going to know that you live in this apartment. Whoever you sit beside will not know you live in this apartment. They will not know you drive a 1990 Buick Skylark. They're not going to know that the $10 in your pocket your mother gave to you, and they will not know your credit score is lower than 400. The only thing they'll know is who you are. And she said, I know who you are. But she said, that person's lost because you're focused on the wrong thing. She said, you know what your purpose is right now? I said, Mom, she said, you go into that bedroom and look at those two. That's your purpose. She said, you got everything in the divorce. You can buy another chair. You can buy anything later. But she said, you got everything. She said, now, tomorrow, you call me from the airport. I'll never forget. I got up the next morning. I called her. I shouldn't have, because it was like I knew when I heard her voice. I started to cry again, but I wasn't expecting what happened next. She said, that's it. She said, no more crying. You leave that violin at that phone. No more pity parties. She said, when you walk on that plane, you're about to attract exactly who you are. She said, now here is who you have become. You are a whiner. You are angry. You are bitter. You know what you're going to do? You're going to meet a woman who whines, is bitter, and angry. Don't you dare bring her home. She said, walk on that airplane and be who you are. The real person that I know you are. The person that when we wanted to have Thanksgiving and you weren't there, and your aunt said, we don't start until he gets here. Your uncle said, he's the life of the party. Your brother said, we're not starting without bro. Said they all look up to you. She said, don't let what you're going through dictate who you are. Because she said, I know who you are. She had me crying. And then she said, when you walk on the airplane, first person you see, you put a smile on their face. I go, Mother, you want me to be comedic as I walk onto a plane? I'm crying right now. She goes, do it. I'm like, fine. I wasn't going to do it. I went to walk on a plane, I'll never forget. She's on my shoulder going, do it. You better do it. But don't it. And so I finally got on the plane. I thought, what am I going to say that's funny? So I did something really stupid. The flight attendant was standing there. I went like this to her. I said, how you doing? She said, good night, she said. She said, I hope you're in coach. I said, it's your lucky day. I'm in 3D. I sat down in 3D. There was a woman in 1C. That's it. This was pre-upgrades. She walked back to me and she said, may I get you something to drink? I said, no, ma'am. She said, did you just say no, ma'am? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, whoa, 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 whoa. No, ma'am, yes, ma'am. I said, yes, ma'am. It's the way I was raised. She goes, well, I didn't see that coming. I said, well, I apologize about coming on the plane. And I said, my mother told me to make you laugh. And she said, well, one thing, you'll never be a comedian. She asked me if I wanted something to drink when we got up in the air, and I said, no, ma'am, again. She finally came back a third time, and this time, uninvited, sat down on the armrest of 3C across from me. Remember, nobody's in the row, and she said, it's none of my business, tell me to leave. But she said, are you all right? I turned and said, no, I'm not. I told her my story. I told her what my mother said. She said, repeat that. I said, my mother said that one person could change the lives of millions. My mother said that what you go through in life will make you bitter or better, stronger or weaker. I said, I know she's right, but I don't feel strong, and I am a little bitter. And she said, no, you're not. I go, how do you eat? You don't even know me. She said, you're hurting. I said, maybe so. She then said to me, she said, my sister-in-law sat with me as we counseled my sister, because my sister said, I've never felt fatter, uglier, more worthless as she went through her divorce. And I looked at my sister and said, you've never looked more beautiful. She was looking at the wrong things. And I looked at her, I said, I know. I said, I got this from my mom. She goes, no. She said, listen to me. And then she held up her hand, diamond and a wedding ring. She said, I'm not hitting on you. She said, but you need to hear this. She said, something tells me, and I'm pretty good, you're a catch. And all of a sudden, I began to focus on what my mother had said. I focused on what this flight attendant said, and I started thinking, wait a minute. And I started to review, wait a minute, I am kind. I'm very caring. I'm very giving. I'm very sensitive, and all of a sudden I made this mental list of all the things I was. It was the first time in 3 months I had ever focused on what I was and who I was, not what I had lost. And I thought, you know what? I am a catch. She came back, I'll never forget, flight attendant looked at me, she said, you doing all right? I said, you tell every woman in coach there's a catch in first class. Then I wanted to make her something, so I made her a card. I took out a half a sheet of paper and I folded it over, and on the outside of the card I wrote something. On the inside I wrote the verse, but then I wrote her something on the left inside. Follow the story. Front card, inside right, that's the card, but then I personalized it. I handed it to her and I said, here, before I left this plane, I wanted to give you this to you. I said, I have not felt this good in 3 months. She smiled and she said, well, what's this? I said, and on the outside of the card I had written, I wanted to make you something special. When she opened it up, the right side said, I can't. You already are. Left side I wrote, my mother said when I boarded this flight I would attract exactly who I am. I never say my mother is wrong. Today she was 100% wrong. I attracted more than I am. I said, thank you for making a difference. And I put a smiley face. I could see the emotion in her eyes, and she smiled and she said, you know, people ask me if I love what I do, and I tell them, I love what I do because of the people. She said, you've made my day. Because she said, I saw you crying in the gate area. And as I walked on this plane with that crew, I was determined to make you feel better. I said, well, you did. I went to leave the plane, and she looked at me and she said, looks like you could use a hug. Of course, you have to know me. I'm thinking, I'm single, you're good looking, and we're hugging. So we hugged for about 6 minutes. And then I put my shirt back on. Well, it's just the way I hug. There's still 2 people sitting there. Did he take his shirt off? Stay with me. And then a funny thing happened 11 years later. I walked off an airplane, or imagine that, me walking off another airplane. Another flight attendant looked at me and said, she said, do you live in Pittsburgh? I said, yes, I do. She said, you work for a card company. I said, well, that's odd. I said, I used to years ago. She said, would you mind waiting in the gate area? I'd like to talk to you. Now I'm out there in the gate area thinking, who in the world is this? And by the way, I'm out there in the gate area because I've been dating for 11 years and wasn't real good at it. And I'll tell you how I know. I've been dating for 11 years. And I thought, who is this? She walked off the airplane, pulling a rollerboard, tears streaming down her face, and she said, and I quote, I can't believe it's you. I said, excuse me? I said, are you all right? And she said, I asked you that same thing 11 years ago when you handed me this card. I said, you? She said, my hair was longer. She said, my hair is short. You'd have never recognized me. And I wanted to say something tacky like, man, you have gotten even more beautiful. But I thought, shut up, Steve. Or as my mother would say, a closed mouth gathers no feet. And I said, I'm confused. She said, I've been looking for you for 7 years. I said, but we met 11 years ago. She said, 4 years after we met. She held up her hand. There was no diamond and no wedding ring. She said, 4 years after we met, he walked out. He left me and our children, which I now feel are my children. I said, but she said, I'm not crying because I'm upset. I'm crying because I'm happy. She said, I've looked for you for 7 years. All I simply prayed was that someday I'd be able to see you to tell you that your mother was right. I said, my mother? She said, that day on the plane, you told me that your mother said that one person can change the lives of millions. You told me how moments mattered. You said all these things. And then you shared this with me, and she pulled out of her rollerboard a piece of paper. It was folded. It was the manifest from 11 years ago. Every passenger was listed on it. And she had written on the back of it, bitter or better, stronger or weaker. She said, please tell your mom I'm stronger and I'm better because of her. She said, and by the way, did you read the card? She read the card. You wrote on the card, thank you for making a difference. She said, no, I want you to take the card and pay it forward. I need you to take the card back to your mother and you tell her that she's the one that made the difference. Because if there is no her, there is no you. And if there is no you, there is no me today. She said, one more thing. She said, you tell your mother that if there was ever a list of people that influenced me, impacted me, and changed my life, should be on that list. I said, you've got my word, I'll do it. And then I did what any guy standing in front who was single of a ringless, vulnerable, divorced woman. I did what anyone would do. I called my mom. I told my mother this story. My mother said, any woman that would look for you for 7 days. I no longer live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, because my wife is that flight attendant. We will be married 11 years this year, with a combined family brings us the 4 boys. I refer to them as my sons because they are my sons. But I always think back, what if Margaret wasn't there? What if my mother wasn't there? What if you weren't there? You see, in a single moment, lives change. So let me ask you this question. Let's make this meeting bigger. Let's ask this question. If I were to go to your community, and I were to speak to the Chamber of Commerce like I did last week in a small Texas town where 560 people attended the event. If I were to go to your community and speak at that chamber dinner and ask the people in that audience, what 5 people made the biggest difference in your life? Let me ask you a question. How many of you would make their list? You see, it really is simple. It's waking up every day knowing that purpose is what drives you, passion is what fuels you, and pride defines you. At least you think I'm not goal-oriented. At least you think that I don't have my ear to the ground, my eyes open, when I'm always asked the question, did you know you were going to marry your wife? When you met her the second time, I said absolutely, unequivocally no. Because the first date, we went out, we had to do the foo-foo. You know what I'm talking about, guys? Take them to a nice restaurant. I was from Western Pennsylvania, blue collar, steel, coal, blue collar. I'd never been to a fancy restaurant like that. I took her, I said, you pick the restaurant. She picked one of her favorites. They had a wine list. She ordered Pinot Noir. She goes for a Cobb salad. I don't even know what Cobb salad is. Salad at my mother's house with here's 7 dressings, here's a head of lettuce. Figure it out. She then ordered salmon. She goes, the salmon here is delightful. If you don't know where I stand on salmon, it's a vegetable. This woman has ordered Pinot Noir, Cobb salad, salmon, and then she starts doing this with I'm like, what are you doing with the glass? She told me she was letting it breathe. I go, really? She goes, well, what do you do with alcohol? I said, I smother it. Second date, my friend said, you going to take her out again? I said, yes, I am. He said, where are you going to take her? I said, I have no idea, but I said, hey, I'm not going back to that foo-foo place. She said, put her on your turf. I put her on my turf. I took her to a hockey game. I said, we'll eat at the arena. I got tickets on the glass. I wanted to see if she could take me punching the glass, shaking the glass. Could she trade salmon for a hot dog? Could she trade a Cobb salad for nachos? Could she trade this for this? I picked her up and I looked at her and I went, oh my God, I'm marrying this woman. Look at some of you going, oh, that's so romantic. Remember, business, ear to the ground, eyes open. She's wearing jeans because we're going to be at the glass. It's going to be cold. She's wearing a sweatshirt. I look at the sweatshirt and went, ha ha. It's what it said. I'm dating a flight attendant for the second time who's wearing a sweatshirt that said, marry me, fly free. I did, and I do. Thank you so much, and God bless.